Hello, and welcome back to the Field Coach Expert Podcast, the place where franchisors and field teams come to learn practical ways to strengthen their system and empower their franchisees. I'm your host for today, Jen Brannon. I am the Chief Growth Officer at AC Inc. And today we are diving into a topic that every brand talks about, but not every brand defines well, which is franchisee support. And one of the things we say a lot here at AC Inc. is support is not just coaching. Support is not just answering questions, and support is definitely not just making sure your franchisees are compliant. Franchisee support is an ecosystem with onboarding and training and culture and communication and operational tools and clarity and all of this good stuff, tech even. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. And most importantly, well, one of the most important things, it's also about the people that you put in place who are there to guide and empower your franchisees. So I'm really excited because I'm joined by someone who is actively helping brands strengthen all of those areas. And so I would like to welcome you, Erica. So this is Erica Shoop, who is one of our amazing rockstar advisors here at AC Inc. So welcome, Erica. I'm so thrilled that you're here to join me today.
I am genuinely so happy to be here. I've been looking forward to this all week.
Amazing. I know it's Friday for us today, so it's
a
good way to end our week. And, the weekend is right around the corner, so we can just hang out and finish our Friday off this way. So let's get into it, Erica. For listeners who do not know anything about you, can you share a little bit about your background in franchising? And then why, how did you come to be part of our team at AC Inc.?
Yeah, absolutely. So funnily enough, my degree is in kinesiology with a concentration in education, which is a very far cry from where I am right now. But that led me to my first kind of franchise or like business coach type support role when I worked for Les Mills in the fitness industry, but coaching business owners who were implementing our program. So I've spent most of my career in the same type of role. I've been called a lot of different things in those roles. Sometimes it's like club coach, client success manager, consultant, field marketing manager, learning and operations, all of them just different ways to say that I've been coaching business owners for the better part of 15 years. And the focus is always growth and profitability and making sure that those business owners feel supported. I've been lucky to be in roles where I've always had frameworks and systems to work within. So some of it was in licensing models. I was a consultant at HubSpot for a bit, coaching marketing agency owners. I've worked with several different franchise portfolios, everything from small emerging brands like tiny ones all the way up to large groups with thousands of locations, both before I came to AC Inc. and now as part of this team. But I feel so lucky to have landed in this role because I've really enjoyed the coaching aspect, and now getting to coach other coaches and also still do that work with franchisees and brands has been just awesome, so fulfilling.
Well, we're thrilled to have you here. You instantly. When did you join the team? Remind me of what month it was, because I forget.
May. It was the end of May.
Yeah, it hasn't been that long. And man, you just from day one, you just fit right in, and away you went. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that and what you're doing with AC Inc. But before we move there. This, the theme of today's podcast is really about franchisee support. So if I ask you that question, what does effective franchisee support mean to you? If you can let us know your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So it is more than just the coaches that are working directly with franchisees. It's actually, in my eyes, a cross-functional effort. Because even if like your marketing team or your tech team aren't working directly with franchisees, they they need to have their fingers on the pulse of what's actually going on out on the front lines to be able to provide the resources and support that's going to be effective, right? So it's about all of the brand or all of the departments at the franchisor working together. And it actually starts all the way back in FranDev. It's setting the right expectations, making sure we're selecting the right candidates, and then having a really strong onboarding process that gives all of those new franchisees a foundation for success. That they need that structure in the early phases, and then they need the ongoing support and resources to continue to grow over time. And my personal, connection to that is that given that I started out as a teacher, I've kind of always approached coaching more from like an educating mindset. And that's also what led me into some of my learning and development roles. And I think that having a really strong L&D team in place to be the ones actually creating like e-learning modules and resources that are designed to be most effective to the way adults learn, having that strong set of resources in place frees coaches up to do the actual coaching.
Yes.
Because the subject matter experts, which is usually what your coaches are not always the best people to create those resources. And honestly, their time is better spent having really good conversations with franchisees. So again, being able to kind of collaborate and work together on the types of resources that we're creating. And then you mentioned tech, having a tech stack that makes those things easy for franchisees to find and use is also an important piece of that equation. But it keeps coaches out of that, like, let me send you that doc, or let me type that up for you. Let me create that. It allows them to just have really impactful conversations about vision and strategy and growth. So it's a all around effort, everybody working together.
It really is. And it franchisee support is one of the most important things to do as a whole, but then it's what are all of those prongs, if you will, that all together make us have a really strong franchisee support program.
Yeah.
So we have quite a large community of franchise systems here at AC Inc., with our free roundtables, and we're always at conferences and talking to people and things like that. And so we hear a lot of what's going wrong or mistakes that franchise systems make, because it is what it is. In business, you make mistakes. I know as a franchisee, I made a million mistakes, and a lot of my work with brands or other coaches or franchisees or whoever I'm working with, it's about, hey, learn from my mistakes. So if we talk about that, what are some of those pitfalls where systems tend to go wrong, maybe especially at the beginning, because they're just learning and trying to figure out, but not always. We see brands that have been doing the same thing for 30 years and are still deep in those pitfalls. So what would some of those things be?
Yeah, I've seen both. Listen, though, I'm going to preface this with mistakes are the way we learn fastest, right? So I like the idea of let's just try it, fail fast, and improve. That constant iterative process is important. But I think where I've seen a lot of brands miss the mark is when that onboarding phase is not effective or not thorough, because it's really, really hard to build a sturdy house on a foundation that has cracks in it, right? We need to focus so much of our time and attention on how we onboard and train brand new franchisees. Beyond that, it's accountability and follow through. Because the other mistake that I've seen several different systems make is every time someone asks for something, they create a resource and they throw it out to the system. And then, this sounds counterintuitive, but sometimes the library of resources is so big that when franchisees go to find something, they don't know where to look. They can't weed through all of the resources. They don't know how to use those things. So there's no follow through or pull through when we've invested the time and resources to create the things. And that system becomes so overwhelming because there's so much in it.
Yeah.
So I think being more strategic and thoughtful and intentional about what you create and then how you're actually implementing it and teaching franchisees to use it is a way better use of time and resources than just creating everything and throwing it out there and hoping something sticks and they can find what they need. I think it really is in that follow through, but that also connects to us thinking we know what the problem is at the franchisor level, or assuming we know what the solution is without taking the time to understand the real challenge or the objective, right? So if someone asks for something, they may think that that resource is going to solve the problem, but we might just be putting a Band-Aid over something,
right,
rather than treating the root cause.
Love it.
Which are two different things, right?
Absolutely, for sure. So one of the things, and I think that happens so often, is you got to dig in and understand, right? As opposed to looking at everything up here and be like, oh, we'll put a resource together, or one person needs more training on this, or whatever. What is that root cause to this? One thing that I do want to mention, and it's not so much, hasn't been a pitfall in the past, but and Angela and I re-recorded our episode not long ago, and we kind of dug into one of our friends of the brand called Easy Assist. But we're now brands who have always done things a certain way. They've created their resource, they put it into their Google Drive library or their intranet or something like that. A pitfall that you can get into is just doing what you've always done. And now with AI, it's actually, this is the answer to your problems in a lot of ways, because you can create that resource, you can put it in the library, and if you've got an amazing AI system of whatever, doesn't have to be Easy Assist, it can be whatever you're using, and you've got franchisees that are using that platform to be drawing it out of your library. So if they have an issue of, I don't know how to create a social media graphic on, X or something. Well, that AI can answer the questions, and you've fed it the content, the resources, or whatever, or it can just find it for them. So that's something I think is really changing quickly, that piece of things for franchise systems, which is amazing.
Yeah, for sure.
I know. All right. So let's move on. I want to talk about, because we are known as the field coach experts. And so when it comes to franchisee support, as much as we work with systems to help them strengthen their franchisee support and all of these different elements, whether it's training and onboarding and ongoing training and communication, all those other things, one of our main niches is really helping the field coach and the coaching of franchisees. So again, whether we use the term field coach, your franchise business coach, your franchise success manager, your regional director, or whatever you call the person that's coaching your franchisees, that's when we use that term field coach. I don't want to go down the coaching road, which is funny talking about your field coach. I want to ask about, other than coaching, what is the role of that field coach in supporting franchisees?
Yeah. I have taken a couple of different approaches to this in my personal role, and I've seen a lot of folks do similar things, right? I always felt that it was part of my biggest responsibility as a field coach was to advocate for franchisees. So because I was the person out on the front lines, visiting their studios or visiting their locations and having conversations with them and actually seeing what is happening out in the field, being able to kind of collect and synthesize all of that feedback and bring it back to the franchisor to say, hey, this initiative we're about to launch is going to fall flat because we haven't fixed X, Y, and Z. We need to fix those things first before we can even go down that path. It's not going to be as successful, or it's not going to have the impact we want it to have, right? And being able to kind of bridge the gap and share the feedback or share the results of what's actually happening on the front lines, or getting down to the root issues of those problems and then being able to translate that back. So I think field coaches can act as really strong advocates when they've taken the time to go out and be in the field and have those conversations and ask really thoughtful, curious questions. Because we can also then discern between exceptions and rules, right? Like, well, this is happening, but it's only happening in one or two places. So that's something that we maybe need to just troubleshoot or triage over here. But then there's this other thing that almost everyone is having the same problem. So now I see a pattern. There's something bigger we need to address here. And we can kind of bring that back to franchise leadership and figure out how we're going to support and solve for it. Along those lines, connecting with franchisees and then connecting them to other franchisees, or, connecting them to other folks, or teaching them how to like network, or saying like, hey, this person over here is really struggling with this thing, but this person over here is exceptional at that thing. You two should talk, and kind of getting them together with people that they don't know because they're not in the same market, or maybe this person's been in the system for 10 years and this person's new. I think being able to kind of create those connections, which also strengthens that like community feel and the culture of the system as a whole. That's a huge part of the coach's responsibility. That was actually like my favorite thing to do at conferences, like right immediately, as soon as you walk into like the cocktail reception at the very beginning, it's like, hey, you need to meet this person and you need to meet this person. And you're just kind of playing matchmaker.
Right.
Like all of these things. But then that helps them, have real conversations where they're saying like, oh, you have that problem? I have that problem. I thought I was the only person having that problem. And we kind of normalize, and it makes them feel a little bit less alone, because entrepreneurship can feel very lonely sometimes and isolating. But I think that's the beautiful thing about a franchise system, is it doesn't have to feel that way, but it's sometimes we have to help create that community intentionally. And so I feel like we play a huge role in that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's key, because you are the connector as the coach, between franchisees, as well as to the leadership and to the other departments within the system. And it's the voice. It's the also sometimes I think it's the coaches are with the franchisees a lot, talking to them, understanding them, have empathy for the situation. Good coach really realizes, man, my franchisees have invested $500,000, their life savings into this brand and into this business, and here's the struggles and here's their feelings. A good coach really is tapped into that.
Right.
That's not always the case for the other departments that maybe don't always get it and are just, whether it's marketing or operations or some of these other departments that doesn't have that same interaction. It's really important that that coach brings that perspective to these other people, in the corporate office, so that if they do have communication with the franchisees, they can have that empathy and that understanding and that perspective, that I think is not always there. So I want to kind of dip into the kind of, let's say, the misalignment around sometimes of the role of the coach, and talking about compliance. But before we go into compliance, one of the big things that I've seen a lot, and I've heard a lot from coaches saying, that they feel like they're the dumping ground. They're the dumping ground from everybody else in, at the corporate office, whether you call it a home office, head office, whatever it might be, not just leadership team, but for bigger brands that have bigger teams, it's get your franchisees to do this. Your franchisees need to do X, Y, and Z. It's your responsibility to get them to do that. Or why isn't your franchisee doing, so the responsibility and the onus comes all on these poor coaches' shoulders. And that's very unfair. And I think that's a trap that brands can get into, because then it's just I'm just someone that's to make the franchisee do something, or I'm the one communicating all of the things to the franchisee. And we know that does not produce an effective relationship between certainly the coach and the franchisee, but also the franchisor, corporate office, and the franchisee. So just wanted to note that, because I hear that so much. And then consequently, the coach is like, I'm doing all these other things. I don't have time to actually coach the franchisee. And man, what a missed opportunity if that's the case, because then you have coaches that aren't really coaching.
Yeah.
So if we go down the compliance officer route, which a lot of brands, that's a huge responsibility of their coaches, is compliance. And what do you think impact that has, Erica, on coaches when they are that compliance piece as well? And don't get me wrong, all coaches are going to have some form of compliance, meaning they're going to be the eyes a lot of times.
Right.
They're going to, we talk about motivating our franchisees to want to be compliant. That is much different than showing up with your checklist and being like, here's your report, here's all the things you got to fix. Okay, see you next time. So, Erica, can you speak to that a little bit?
That's exactly the direction that I was thinking. It's that like there's a difference between coming in with your checklist and being like very black and white and directive. And then where, if you've hired really good coaches, they have the human skills to create motivation and buy-in towards adhering to brand standards, because they can see the benefit. They can see how it benefits them. They can see how it benefits the system. They can see how that, rising tide lifts all boats. If we're all moving in the same direction, we're all growing together. So I think that's the difference, is that like when coaches are sort of told you have to just go in and tell them what to do and hold a hard line and make sure they're compliant, that's a totally different vibe than saying, it's really important for you to invest in this relationship with this franchisee, to build trust, to understand what's going on in their system, to understand what's most important to them, and then how we can connect what we want to do at the franchisor level, or what we kind of require at the system level for us to be a cohesive brand, connect it to what's important to them, right? Because sometimes it's just, like you said, things aren't being communicated or translated correctly. So there's misunderstanding or misalignment, or franchisees don't understand why or what's in it for me. Right. Frankly, going back to what you said before, when I've invested my life savings into something, I want to know that what you're doing is supporting like my business and what's in it for me.
Right.
Right. There's nothing wrong with that. We should be able to answer that question, right, at the franchisor level. So I think and I got that, I've gotten that in plenty of coaching roles, especially like I walked into one role where franchisees had very little to no support for the better part of a decade. They were building finally and investing in the team. And I started going in on my listening tour, and I got a lot of, well, you're from corporate. What are you just going to tell me everything I'm doing wrong? Like, actually, that's not why I'm here.
Yeah. Shocker.
Hopefully, no. Hopefully we can find all the things you're doing right. And then hopefully we can also find some opportunities for you to continue to grow, right? That's the goal. But it took so much listening and learning to build the trust that then allowed us to have conversations about like, hey, here's the standard though. And here's why the standard is what it is. And here's how it could help you as you continue to grow and scale. Because I think when we can really learn and dig down deep into what's most important to them, then we have totally different conversations.
Absolutely.
But we say this in Accelerator, like you build trust in inches and you lose it in miles. And so if coming in and just telling someone exactly what to do or telling them they're doing everything wrong, great way to lose trust. Right? Yes. And it's just not going to get us very far in the long run. It's not going to be sustainable taking that approach. And as far as like coaches being the catch-all, I hear and see that too, because you're the one on the front lines. And frankly, like your marketing team may not have bandwidth to talk to every single one of your franchisees directly. But that becomes really challenging for coaches because they aren't necessarily experts in everything. We can't be. We simply can't be. Right. So it becomes a little bit challenging to be effective when we have to start to do things that are outside of that scope. Not to say that coaches shouldn't or can't, because if it's going to support our franchisees, then we can maybe figure out how to make it work. But it's that ability to, it takes away from what you said, those thoughtful, intentional conversations about vision and strategy and growth. And it becomes more tactical, which feels so much less valuable to a franchisee.
Absolutely. For sure. You, yeah, you're spot on there. One of the things you mentioned, you used the term the accelerator. And for anyone who's listening that doesn't understand, the accelerator is our field coach certification program. And Erica is again a rock star facilitator. Your participants, Erica, because we feed back and survey our participants, well, all of our clients, anybody working with us, because we just want to make sure that the value is there and the impact is there. Man, the feedback that you get is outstanding. They love the program and they love you as their facilitator. So I just wanted to give your a little some kudos there. So you do that, but then you're also working with some other, I believe you're doing a performance group, working with some franchisees, teaching them some business skills, and you've got some other clients. And so you've got this unique perspective because you're working with coaches and franchisees and leadership teams. So can you share with us a few things you're seeing in your work right now that really illustrates what strong franchisee support looks like, or what happens if maybe you're seeing or hearing when it's not strong, and when those support elements are missing?
Yeah, of course. Well, I will say that the one thing I've done mostly accelerators so far in my work with AC Inc. And actually the accelerator program is really what drew me to AC Inc. because I love the blend, or I guess the emphasis on human skills for coaching versus just tactical business skills. Again, we have a lot of subject matter experts, but in all my roles and in all those different titles I held, not once did anyone teach me active listening or effective communication, or, changing your coaching approach based on personality styles. None of those things were ever covered. Oh, there's a little Zoom reaction for you. None of those things were ever covered. So much so that even after over a decade as a coach, when I went to pursue additional certifications, I pursued a life coaching certification for myself so that I could pair my business skills with some of those more human skills. So all of that to say, one of my favorite things that happens in Accelerator is we talk in our very first session about the difference between coaching and consulting. And we ask the question, how many of you are coaching? How many of you are consulting? What percentage coaching versus consulting do you think you do? And almost all of them are like, I'm definitely a coach. I'm coaching 80 to 90% of the time, and I'm consulting much less. And then we get halfway through the accelerator and we start to really dive into the coaching skills and the human skills. And sometimes it happens a little more quickly. Sometimes it comes out in the final certification presentation when they're presenting their personal action plans. But by the end, everyone's like, I thought I was a coach. Right. I have so much work to do to be a better coach. And I'm so grateful for everything that I've learned. So being able to kind of see that mindset shift, even in the coaches, even in folks who are very seasoned coming through this program, they've got tons of experience and they add so much value to the conversations that we have in Accelerator. But even them coming in and saying, I've learned so much and I have so much work to do to be a better coach, to be more effective. That's been the most fun thing for me, because it really is a shift in mindset from coaching to consulting, or from consulting to coaching. And so that has been really fun in Accelerator. In the franchisee coaching, again, I think sometimes, and I've done this too, even in my own coaching, making assumptions that just because someone owns a business means they know how to operate a business. Right. So oftentimes I've seen so many folks come into franchising and they choose a business model in an industry they're really passionate about. And in the beginning, when you're first getting started, you often have to be in the trenches doing some of the work until you build up some revenue so that you can start to hire people. Right. But then some franchisees get stuck and they can't get out of doing the work because they've gotten really comfortable in that space. And they haven't yet learned some of those higher level skills of working on your business. And so, sometimes we can assume just because someone's been in business for 3 years, they know how to read a P&L. They know, how to track their metrics effectively. They know how to extract a story out of that data and use it to create a strong strategy and set new goals. Oftentimes we're not doing a very good job of teaching those business skills. At the franchisor level, we're teaching the systems and the framework, and we're teaching, the product or the service, but not necessarily that other stuff that is really, really foundational. So getting to do that in performance groups has been awesome because, I ask the question, like, have you ever done any vision planning before? And, maybe someone's created like a vision board or like set a goal for the year, but not with the level of detail that we go through in a performance group. And by the end of that exercise, they're like, wow, my vision is so clear now. And it becomes 10 times more powerful and motivating when they can see the detail of the vision with so much clarity, right? Or when we go through a now analysis and they're like, wow, I thought that we were doing so many things really well. And we're doing a lot of things really well, but we have so many opportunities to dial it up this year. And I'm really excited to like tackle this batch of things that we uncovered in the now analysis that we weren't even really looking at before, right? So it's that when we walk beside them and we give them a tool and then give them the opportunity to apply that like theory and put it into practice right away in a performance group, you can see, like you can physically see, because everyone's on camera, the light bulb moments or the like the little aha moments. And when things start to click into place and then they come back in the next call and they're excited to tell you like about the homework they did or what they learned or what they tried to implement and how it went, you can feel the difference in their confidence and in their like ability to lead their teams and their ability to lead their businesses. And that is like a tangible shift that's just awesome to experience. Yeah. So I love that.
Yeah, no, we've had so many people come through those performance groups and just say, and I know I've said this on previous podcasts, but man, do I ever finally feel like a business owner.
Yeah.
And how empowering is that? Because as coaches, we're trying to get these franchisees to do the things that they need to do to drive their business. But because we know that that's what they need to do, but then they don't have the skills and the confidence. And, a lot of times coaches are talking at them and telling them what they should do. Right. And it's the empowerment and the confidence to now really kind of get it and want to do these things, get out of working day to day and really feel, now I understand as a business owner, how do I do my strategic planning and how do I use my numbers and my KPIs and how do I shift from marketing being something that maybe I'm going to go out in the community for an hour on Friday once in a while. Now like we actually create a plan and we teach them how to keep accountable to that plan and really focus on it and all these other things. We just love these performance groups. And so thank you for talking about that, because I think we're really big on this podcast where we can't help but talk about how AC Inc. works with coaches and franchise leaderships and franchisees. But it's not all about, hey, come work for us or for us, come work with us. It's about also what can you do in your own brand to make a shift. Yes, of course, we can do performance groups for you, but you can also incorporate business skills into your training. And it doesn't have to be onboarding and the initial training. It can be after that. It can be in that ramp period. It can be ongoing, all of these different things. Now, I will say, to get what we do in our field coach certification in the accelerator, there's nobody that does that. So like us. So you would have to come to AC Inc. for that. And you would want to, because people, Erica, tell me if I'm wrong, but we've had a lot of participants say it's kind of life-changing. Like it's just so leveled them up, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I have one group right now that's only about 11 sessions in, and some of them have already said that. I was like, we haven't even gotten to the good stuff yet.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to go 10 layers deeper. Get ready.
Nice. Love it. Love it. Well, so, okay. But beside those few things, if you were going to recommend to a franchisor, a few things that they can do to really just strengthen their franchisee support, what do you think that they should do, or even focus on first?
Okay, so first and foremost, I think everything that you do from a support perspective, because whether you're talking about coaching or designing training or learning or, whatever, whether it's your new franchisee training or e-learning or resources, I always say to start with the outcome and reverse engineer, because if we don't know what behavior we're trying to change or what outcome we're trying to achieve, then we're just going to maybe miss the mark with whatever we do or whatever we create. And so starting with that outcome or objective in mind and then reverse engineering into, okay, what are we going to do to get there? But then I think it's twofold in setting people up for success. Set your coaches up for success by teaching them skills that go beyond just the business skills. Teach them the human skills that's going to make them more effective as coaches, or send them to Accelerator. And then, and then for your franchisees, don't skip over the basics. Don't assume they know anything. Assume they're a blank slate coming in, because then we're sure that we've covered all our bases when we're setting them up for success in the beginning. So I think that initial onboarding and training is just one of the most crucial parts of what makes a successful franchise system. But then even beyond that, it's really intentionally building a culture and a community in your system, which means that, we need to have opportunities to celebrate. We need to have opportunities to have fun together. We need to be together in person at conferences or at, in studio visits. We need opportunities to connect and build real relationships, because when we have real relationships that are built on a strong foundation of trust, I say this all the time in Accelerator, and I think this comes from the book 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, just so I'm crediting the right person. But in the absence of trust, accountability feels like blame. In the presence of trust, accountability feels like support.
Ooh,
So if we're really going to set our people up for success and build the kind of relationships that allow us to kind of grow and move together, that leads to real long-term sustainable success, we have to start from a foundation of trust all the way around.
Love it. I love that quote. I want to steal that. I was instantly thinking, where can we put that? That needs to go on our website. Where is that going?
One of my favorites.
Awesome. Oh, yeah. I've never heard that. That's awesome. Thank you for that, Erica. Okay, we've got to wind down. So thank you so much. I always love hearing your take on everything, and you do such a great job of breaking down the big picture of things, and in this case, franchisee support, because I think so many systems really understand how holistic it truly is. And I think that you've done a great job of portraying that. So for all you listeners out there, if you want to learn more about specifically our field coach certification, the Accelerator, or performance groups that we've talked about, or any of our services, please feel free to reach out. You can reach out to me, Jennifer, at fieldcoachexperts.com, or absolutely visit our website, which is fieldexperts.com. I thank you so much, Erica, again, and thanks everybody out there for joining us on the Field Coach Experts podcast, and I will see you next time.